waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Draft day eve, y'all.
It is draft season is officially upon us. And to celebrate, we're going to have fantastic Eliot Crist on with us later to talk draft props, to find out if, we can work out where people will go based on what people in that there Vegas are saying.
I just do think that we've not done as much on the draft as we have done in previous years. I think that's because for what's best known to ourselves, we've been fairly rigid with we'll just do one a fortnight of these shows. So instead of us doing what we usually do, like we usually do at least a couple of mocks ourselves, I just think that we've realised that we actually know sod all, and we'll just let the process play out.
Yeah, I like talking big themes and players and whatever, but we're not tape grinders. I leave that to the professionals, the guys at the touchdown, the NFL.coms, the ESPNs, the whatevers. I just saw something from Peter Schrager, who this week I have seen on Good Morning Football on NFL Live on ESPN. Doesn't even work for ESPN, and on the Bills, and listen to on the Bill Simmons podcast that talk about how he's done his final mock. That's a busy man right there. I'm seeing the guys in the UK who do this for the love. Are putting out 7-round mock drafts and going through 255, 300 guys tape grinding. Sometimes we struggle to fit an hour in during a week, so good luck to them all.
Yeah, I think once it's all done and dusted, we know where everyone is and where everyone's going to be and where everyone isn't. We'll be able to come forth with our usual cutting edge opinions and piss taking. But until then, we'll like the Mississippi, it just keeps on rolling.
I'm gonna take your word for it. Before we get to Eliot, though, we've got a couple of absolute classic weird worlds, and I want to start with one that just absolutely blew me away this week. Neither of our name is Josh, but if it was, boy, did you have a good week. You missed out the chance of becoming the one true Josh, the Josh to rule all Joshes. The accolade is already gone. He was named a guy was named the champion of all the Joshes after fighting for the title. This began when the pandemic started. Basically, hundreds of people called Josh have gathered together from all over the United States of America to take part in a duel with them floaty lightsaber style water things. Foam poon noodles, they're called, to battle each other after first playing a game of rock, paper, scissors. It all started by Josh Swain, 22, a student in Tucson, Arizona. He got the ball rolling by messaging other people who shared his name on social media. After he chose a location at random, hundreds of people showed up at Air Park in Lincoln, Nebraska for the event. Josh Swain from Omaha beat the original Josh at a grueling and righteous battle of rock, paper, scissors. In a subsequent pool noodle competition, which anyone with the first name Josh could enter, the victor was a 5-year-old who was given a Burger King crown. There can only be one Josh, and it was a 5-year-old who won a pool noodle battle.
It just sounds, that whole set, that when you started talking to when I just started chiming in, that just sounded like I was on LSD.
I saw this on the internet this week, and I just thought we had to talk about it. The idea that some guy was, locked down and thought, you know what, I'm going to set up a massive battle between me and the rest of the Joshes to highlight that I am the greatest Josh, is one of the great things. Neil, if you had a battle of all the Neils, and you now rock, paper, scissors and a pool noodle battle have gone, what would you choose?
I honestly don't know. See, it's weird.
I think you start with a keep you up competition, and you end.
I'm out straight away.
And you end with a you go into pairs and you do a wheelbarrow race, and then the top 10 go into a Royal Rumble style match inside a ring over the top rope.
Are you deliberately putting up events that I have no chance of winning? Yeah. If I'm going to arrange this, then I want to have a say. I mean, I will put out that, I do have a friend on Facebook who's called Neil Dutton. We did used to work, we didn't work together, but our paths nearly crossed on several times. But I have also rejected friend requests from other Neil Duttons who, for no reason, wanted to be my friend because I have the same name as them. Piss off. I don't even like this Neil Dutton. Why would I want to speak to another one?
Is this the classic early 21st century Dave Gorman concept, Neil, where Dave Gorman went around the world looking for other Dave Gormans?
I think it might have been.
Look, I even flew there. Here's my airline ticket.
Yeah.
Remember when you could get on planes? That was cool.
That was fun. I mean, going back to the Joshes, I do remember playing cricket against someone. His name was Josh Rogan, which obviously, if you flip it the other way around, is a curry.
It is a curry. It is a curry, Neil.
But the thing is, though, it was, even though I'm sure he hadn't heard that before, the fact that the constant heat references I was making in normal conversation, he didn't get onto.
Did in that world, do you think that Josh is a Googler of his own name? Do you know what I mean? Have you ever Googled Neil Dutton to find out what Neil Dutton does in the rest of Google?
Yeah, I have. Because there's that little thing you can do as well, that if you go to Google and put your own Twitter handle in and go to news, it will show you all the web pages and articles that have used your tweets. Yeah. Which stunned me with the number of articles in the Daily Mirror that have featured me when I've been tweeting about Bake Off. There aren't many notable Neil Duttons. There was, however, once, back in 2006, this was incredible coincidence. On the same day that Chris Barry and myself had a 50-run partnership for the Fifths against Huyton, somewhere in Staffordshire, a Neil Dutton and Chris Barry put on 50 runs for their team as well on the exact same day. And it wasn't us.
That sounds like an episode of Sliders, that. That sounds like an episode of Sliders. Neil, let's move on. Dear people of Toronto, if you bring your soccer team down to Florida, be expecting an animal invasion. A professional soccer team from Toronto FC in fact, it had their practice interrupted by a massive alligator that invaded the field. Toronto FC were holding a closed practice on Monday. No, you weren't. An alligator line. When an alligator wandered onto the grass. All I can tell you is this: there was an alligator, a massive alligator. Toronto coach Chris Armas told Sky Sports, and my players are running towards the alligator as I went the other way. Listen, we talk about fearless and aggressive around here, but I thought we would not think about it at that moment. The team are preparing to face Mexico's Cruz Azul in Tuesday's CONCACAF Champions League quarter-final match. Quarter-final match delayed due to leg missing from striker due to alligator bite.
Any reference to CONCACAF always makes me chuckle.
I just love the idea that, it's freezing in Toronto. It shouldn't really be freezing in Feb, but anyway, we're trying to get used to Mexico's conditions, so we're going to Florida. Is there anything we need to worry about? Yeah, the big effing alligators. Okay, I'll tell you what, we won't do that. We'll practice somewhere near a swamp so an alligator can get out.
It was like back in the days of NFL Europe. Nate Jackson, who was a wide receiver tight end for the Denver Broncos, he was allocated to the Rhine Fire. Now, the Rhine Fire, of course, they played in Cologne on occasion, which is a city we've been to, which is very nice, very pleasant. The ale is excellent. Yeah. However, to acclimatise for their trip to NFL Europe, the Rhine Fire's training camp was in Orlando. Believe me, Cologne is not similar to Orlando in terms of humidity, temperature, climate. No.
That is wild, but yeah, there we go. I love that name, though, Rhine Fire, and I look forward to going to Germany to watch an NFL game soon.
I just look forward to going anywhere out
much better than London.
Yeah, anywhere out this house, to be honest.
Well, yeah, definitely. Right, Neil. They're the weird whales this week. If you love them as much as me and Neil, drop us a line at waxing_lyrical. Or individually, Neil is at Endon13, I'm at Mainsy7, and we will read them out and give everyone a laugh at what's going on. But Neil, that's enough. It's draft season. The draft is mere 24 hours away, so let's get Eliot Crist on the line. and talk about some draft props. And joining us now on Wax and Lyrical, it's a privilege to welcome Eliot Crist, who's COO of FTN Network. Eliot, how are we today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem whatsoever. We will get onto some draft props momentarily, but Neil, as he's mean, told me that you're a Jets fan, so we have a couple of Jets questions. First one, it's a dawn of a new era for the Jets especially, but I guess how sad are you that you will no longer have Adam Gase in front and centre of the Jets organisation?
It's actually funny. I took a pause. I tweeted this out when they hired him and caught a lot of flack for it, but that I wouldn't be a Jets fan until he got fired. Because there was no point being emotionally invested in a team that had Adam Gase as a coach. And everyone said, you don't know that he's a bad coach. And I was like, wait till you see. And now we are where we are. So it's actually kind of fun that they stunk for a couple of years and collected a lot of capital, because now there's some hope for the future. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to completely blow it and be the New York Jets of old, but at least the NFL draft is exciting with, the second overall pick, multiple first-rounders, multiple third-rounders, second-rounder. Next year they'll have, multiple first, second, and third. So a lot of stuff to look forward to in that area. And as someone who loves to bet on the draft and follow the draft, at least my team can be exciting, 2 days a year.
It is. I speak from a slightly more privileged position in the sense that, as an Eagles fan, the Super Bowl that they won that seems like 15 to 20 years ago was actually only 3. So I'm technically not allowed to moan about the Eagles, but bloody hell I will. It's like seeing with the Jets that there's this, this new era is starting. There's, all the draft capital. There's a prime pick to get and start, this new era off and running. But then it's just in my head, I just keep replaying that Jets fans all chanting for Warren Sapp and getting Kyle Brady. And it's just one of our closest friends is a Jets fan, and for his sake and for yours, I don't really want to see Jets fans go through this again.
It's actually funny. I was at a Jets draft party at MetLife. This was 3-4 years ago, I want to say. And the Jets picked in the, I want to say 22, 23, and the entire arena was chanting for Paxton Lynch. So they want Paxton Lynch as the new quarterback. And they announced Darren Lee. And I didn't even like Darren Lee. I was just excited it wasn't Paxton Lynch. So I let out a yes while everyone else screamed and cursed and everything else. And people were all kinds of mad at me that I didn't want Paxton Lynch. So, funny thing is, they then drafted Christian Hackenberg the next day, which ruined every and all positive momentum that I had going into it. It was like, at least we avoided that one. And then they somehow managed to make it worse. But, this Jets team has a strong history of it's very obvious who the good player on the board is, and then they just go in a completely different direction that makes no sense. I think Justin Fields should be a second overall pick. This year they're going to go Zach Wilson, but at least there's a lot of tools that Zach Wilson has that screams he's going to do a good job. The biggest thing for me is not what they do at 2, but what they do at 23 and 34, because everyone's like, they need a corner and they need a defensive end. Cool. I don't care. They're going to give up 35 points a game without them, and they're going to give up 28 points per game with them. The rest of their defense isn't particularly good anyway. Why not give Zach Wilson the protection and all the weapons he needs, and just everything should be around making him successful? They've got a win total of 6.5, which is the 3rd lowest in football next year. Like, don't try to win next year. People try to do that. They try to cut rebuilds. Like, do everything you can to make Zach Wilson successful. You signed Corey Davis. Would I have gone Will Fuller or Kenny Galladay or a different direction? Sure, but Corey Davis is a fine wide receiver too. Denzel Mims has some talent. Keelan Cole, I think, is meh, and Jamison Crowder is like a fine slot. Like, it's not a great core, but at least there's something there. However, after Mekhi Becton, they have legitimately no interior offensive line whatsoever, and their right tackle, George Fant, is replacement level if I'm being nice. So at 34 and 23, like, why not go get a Tevin Jenkins and have an elite tackle pairing, and why not go get, Creed Humphrey or Alex Leatherwood and get the best center in the draft? And now all of a sudden, Zach Wilson, who's a guy that was used to a lot of time in the pocket at BYU, isn't running for his life all day long, and you can say, cool, our corner's getting cooked, but it'll be fine. We can address that. I'd rather sign Richard Sherman as a plug for a year than just have terrible offensive linemen. So I really hope they finally learn their lesson and build around a young quarterback and give him as much protection and weapons as possible, as opposed to the thing where they continue to try to just build up a defense, throw in a young quarterback with not much, and then wonder why it doesn't work time and time again.
It's as you say. I mean, this year, the priority should be, I'd say, if you're going to take Zach Wilson, put as much protection around him as possible so that he can learn on the job without getting, being polite, the shit kicked out of him. And then, next year, as you say, there's the Jets have built up the, draft capital for next year as well. So maybe make that the defense draft. Go offense this year, build up around Wilson. So as you say, if you're conceding 28 to 30 points, well, maybe you can try and score 20 or 24 yourself, and then next year try and bring it back the other way.
Yeah, and let's say you end up with like Vera Tucker. Somehow you get him at 23, and you get Creed Humphrey. Okay, well now you have an elite interior offensive line, and maybe you're a top 5 pick again next year. You want to trade back a little bit, or you have an opportunity to draft an all-pro right tackle, and you can keep adding players around it. Like this whole, they need a defensive end. You have Quinnen Williams. You just signed Sheldon Rankins to $9 million a year, and you paid Carl Lawson $15 million a year. I think that's okay. You know what I mean? Not every team has to be the 49ers. And like if Robert Saleh's defense needs 4 all-pro level defensive linemen to be successful, he's not that great of a coach. I'm sorry. Like if I can be a great defensive line coach if you give me Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, and Armstead, and like it's just one of those, and D Ford. Like it's one of those situations where you have to be able to develop some guys, and you can't just put all your resources into the defensive side of the ball. It just doesn't work. I mean, even look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, right, where they were a half away from the Super Bowl, and it all fell apart a year later because they were built on strictly defense. It's hard to have sustainability there. You have sustainability. Like the Chiefs are just going to continue to be great because they've got Patrick Mahomes. They've surrounded him with good weapons, and they can, then they can get players on discounts as opposed to constantly overpaying players. So to me, it's not even that hard of a formula. It's just that teams continue to ignore how to build teams properly.
It's as you say, if Salah's scheme, if Salah is such a good coach because he's got 4 Hall of Fame, defensive linemen. Well, Adam Gase was a genius when he had Peyton Manning.
Correct, right? It's the same kind of idea, right? Absolutely. I'm a Washington fan, and the defensive line's really good. But best that be because 3 of the 4 of them were picked in the top 10 in the past 5 years. So if they're not good, we've got a problem on our hands.
Yeah, I mean, last year Ryan Kerrigan was the rotational defensive lineman, right? And he was also a first-round pick.
Exactly. He was a first-round pick 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah. So exactly.
You guys should be good. If you only spend first-round picks on this position, let's stop acting like, oh my God, how'd they get so good?
Yeah, how did they get so good? Well, they've been crap everywhere else for 20 years. That's how it kind of works. If we move on to
I love what Washington did this offseason, by the way. Like, they recognized they had a hole at wide receiver 2. They added Curtis Samuel. They recognized they had a hole at cornerback 2, and they added William Jackson. And they realized that at pick 20, it's probably going to be tough for them to trade the capital to get up, especially when you consider the fact that they won't be able to go to 10, 11, or 12 because it's 3 straight rivals, right? So that's going to be harder for them to, the Bears probably have an easier path to jump up, for an example. So, like, Fitzpatrick's not a bad 1 year. Like, let's go see if we can make a playoff run because the rest of our roster is so talented. And maybe at 19 we add an offensive lineman or a linebacker, and we're one of the better rosters in the NFL. We're just a quarterback away. Sometimes it's okay to be a quarterback away and, wait a year, have a stopgap guy, and then just go all in on a young guy that you can build around. You know what I mean? Because they're going to have all the pieces for that player.
And if that dives us straight into draft picks, right? The quarterback who seems to be dropping the most out of the top 5, given if we assume that Shanahan and the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones as Justin Fields. At the moment,
we're all dead by Sunday.
Yeah, we're all dead by Sunday, according to Kyle. Depends which way it goes. Draft pop at the moment is around 8.5 pick for Justin Fields. Do you think that, given what you're saying, that if it gets to Detroit that someone will draft up, or do you expect Justin Fields to fall below that to kind of Denver and below?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of seen this in the past, too, where we try to put a lot of quarterbacks in the top five, and 5 quarterbacks don't go in a row, right? Like, so the question is, why would you trade up to Atlanta if you could go to Miami or Detroit, right? And you're going to pay a lot less, unless Atlanta gets you to believe that they're going to take a quarterback. Because since he's going to stay put, they're going to take Chase. Miami's dream scenario is to take Pitts. If not, they might take Waddle or Sewell, right? And then the Lions they just invested the second most amount of resources into their analytics as any team in the NFL, and they're probably the second worst roster after the Texans. So he could absolutely be in a trade-up spot there. New England, I think, is probably the most likely team to come up and get him, especially after you look at their entire offseason where they signed Jonnu Smith, they signed Hunter Henry, they signed Nelson Aguilar, they signed Judon. They spent a lot of money, and they've never done that before, and they know the value of a rookie quarterback contract, so I think they did that with that in mind. I'm not betting on Justin Fields because I think the variance is huge, and when I'm trying to bet on NFL drafts, I really want to have a good understanding of where I feel guys' range is, and I think Fields is all over the place, and we're talking about a lot of trades, and that's so much unknown to be put into a bet that I'm good to kind of just say, listen, I thought Fields had a shot to be third. I was wrong, and I'm going to win a lot of other bets, and I don't need to continue to bet on Justin Fields every place he goes.
Another player who comes in with a fair amount of, I think the opinion seems to be quite divided on him. Devonta Smith, obviously last year, the best player in college football by all accounts. He obviously won the Heisman, fantastic production in that, Death Star offense they have in Alabama. Then obviously there is the problem that he weighs about the same as half of me, which is never a good thing. No testing, hasn't done the 40 and that. And as I say, people can bring up all the outliers they want, comparing them. It's like, it's the same size as Marvin Harrison and Chad Johnson. Okay, so if he turns out to be a Hall of Famer, it was a good pick. His over or under at the moment is 11.5. Do you see any? The one thing that everyone always finds out, and we saw this last year, in the draft with Henry Ruggs, the speed will win. So this is more likely why you see someone like Jalen Waddle will probably get taken before him. But where do you think 11.5? Where would you lean with that with Smith?
So yeah, the way I bet it was I got the Giants at plus 500 to take Devonta Smith because I think that's the most likely landing spot in the top 11. It's David Gettleman's a real old school. If you can play football, you can play football, right? And Devonta Smith's going to get knocked for his weight. He's going to get knocked that he was a 4-year player. People are going to say he has to be an outlier to be successful. The counter argument is he's already kind of proven he was an outlier with the fact that he had like one of the greatest seasons in the history of college football, right? It was in the SEC. He handled press coverage incredibly well. J.C. Horn's going to be a top 13 pick in this draft. He's the only guy to ever go up against Horn and get more than 60 yards, and Horn's the most physical corner in the draft, right? So there's counter arguments to both sides on Smith. I think he probably goes anywhere between like 11 and 15, 11 and 16, somewhere in that range. I would lean the over, but I think the Giants are the team I would be most scared of to take him there. So I grabbed him to the Giants. I have not made any other bets on him. I have 98 bets, so it's kind of weird that we're talking about a couple guys that I have not bet on. But Smith, I think the value is there to take on the Giants. That's now down to anywhere between plus 175 and plus 200 because I think the books figured out that's the most likely under as well. So I think that I'm comfortable there. If I had a gun to my head right now, I would take over 11.5.
Cool. For what many people believe is the most talented offensive weapon in the draft, it would be Kyle Pitts. At the moment, you see him at kind of over 5.5, so kind of somewhere after. The decision would be whether it be it wouldn't be Cincinnati. It would be, I guess, Atlanta 4 or Miami and beyond at 6. For you, where do you see him? Do you see Atlanta taking him there, or do you expect him to drop and then go to somewhere like Miami or beyond?
Yeah, he's not going to go beyond Miami, right? So like this is one of the things with betting draft props is that like when he was 5.5 and he was like minus 160 to go under. I took the Falcons' first position tight end at plus 160 because I was like, if he's going top 5, it's to the Falcons. Let me get plus money instead of minus money. It's dropped to 4.5 some places. Right now, the under 5.5 is as high as like minus 280, which says a lot about the Falcons really liking him there because a lot of sharp mocks have really landed on Chase. It's the people I've talked to have basically said it's a done deal that it's Chase in Cincinnati. So I think he's going to go 4. I know he came out and said he thinks 4 quarterbacks are going to go in a row. I don't think that matters. Players typically don't come out in interviews and tell you where they think they're going to go when they're top 5 picks, especially when teams tell you don't say anything, right? I think they're almost more inclined to say the opposite. If I had to guess right now, I'd suggest it's Mac Jones. I still think there's a shot at Trey Lance. Yes, while we're on this, Adam Schefter just reported that the 49ers have made their decision, but they will not announce it until the draft. And I'm like, well, they've made their decision for quite a while now. This is not like breaking news, but if we want to treat it like it, we can.
Adam using his former Denver contacts there, probably just speaking to Mike over a coffee and saying that he's spoken to Kyle, and Kyle said that this is happening, right? I think he was Mike Shannon's biographer, for God's sake.
I think it's amazing that you can get 50,000 retweets on something that everyone already knew was the case by just saying they've made their decision, but we can't tell you what it is, and everyone's going to lose their mind over it. But I think Pitts will go under. I think at this point betting minus 225 to go to Atlanta is a little heavy. I would still see if I could find Atlanta at like minus 120, minus 130 to take Pitts instead of the under 5.5.
So I cannot wait to fume about how early a tight end is taken. I really, speaking as someone who spends an inordinate amount of his time writing about tight ends and how majority of them are toxic, will let us down, and do not disappoint us. Spending the highest pick over in NFL history to get one, it's the PR fume is going to fuel me for weeks.
I love it.
Yeah, it would be the first top 5 tight end since 1972.
Yeah. I just cannot wait. I'm just storing up the anger to try and burst a blood vessel before I actually have to put my fingers on the typewriter on a keyboard.
On a typewriter, thanks Neil. It's not 1960. I guess Elliot, the thing that now jumps out at me based on what you're hearing and what the numbers are is where is Sewell going then? And is his over under now? Should we be taking the under on? Should we be taking the over on him? But given the fact that it sounds like he's not going to Cincinnati, it sounds like you don't believe he's going to Miami. People are going to try and get to Detroit at 7. Does he go to Carolina at 8?
So I think he'll be off the board by 7. I think what happened was Miami traded up to 6 because it was assumed around the league the Bengals were going Sewell. And from what I've heard, the scouting department basically decided Sewell, and then higher-ups came in about a week ago and said, we're taking Chase. I can't even imagine spending a year dedicating your life to trying to make the decision. You come to a unilateral agreement, and then someone says, nope, that would piss me off. But that's a different conversation, right? So I think that times up right around when the Dolphins announced, or we saw leaks that they're willing to trade back from 6, right? And they're trying to drum up interest that they would take Sewell, because I think that's the player that people were most interested in coming up to get, specifically like the Chargers. And the question is, why go to 6 if the Dolphins aren't going to take him? So then they trade Eric Flowers. I think they're looking at taking offensive lineman at 18, not 6. But I think they're open for business there, because I think they'd like to take Waddle or Smith just, 6, 7 picks later as opposed to 6, where they probably didn't need to trade all the way back up to get them. But I think that the Lions will do everything they can to trade down. And I think if Sewell is there, I think potentially J.C. Horn is a trade up, or even Justin Fields with the Patriots. I think that could be 7 with a trade down spot. But, yeah, I think 8 is his absolute floor.
So I mentioned, that drafting a tight end early is going to make me very, very happy. But we get to another one. Number of running backs to be drafted in the first round. The over-under is 0.5. Now, we know, obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers don't listen to anyone and don't seem to realise that if you don't have an offensive line, you probably shouldn't draft a running back. So do you think over or under, basically, is our running back going to get taken in the first round, Elliot?
Yeah, I think potentially 3. I think that I think the Bills are very, very high on Travis Etienne. I think Javonte Williams has some big time supporters. We've seen Najee Harris's total go from 30.5 all the way up to 25.5. The Steelers now favored to take a running back. It's Najee Harris is the most popular mock draft pick to any team outside of the top 11. So it's the pick that mock drafters feel the most comfortable with. Again, this is one of the things with betting is what should a team do? It doesn't necessarily matter, right? Like, should the Steelers take a running back? No. And I've heard the argument that they don't really value running backs in terms of investing capital. And the counter would be they drafted a first rounder in Rashad Mendenhall in 2008. He kind of played out his career, and then they brought in Le'Veon Bell, and they spent a second round pick on him, which is legit capital. Like, if you spend second round capital on a running back, it's legit capital. And then they kind of played out with him, and then they got James Conner in the third round. So it's not like they haven't invested capital. They love that workhorse back. That's absolutely what they want to do. So the Harris connection makes a lot of sense. I bet over 1.5 running backs today at plus 180. I really like the over of half a running back.
And of course, being called Harris and being a running back for the Steelers does have something of a track record of success.
Yeah, I'm not sure how names and jerseys impact projection models, but it definitely, Franco Harris worked out well for them.
If we move over to the defensive side of the ball, where it's light, especially early on, I guess the 2 players who were mocked most to be drafted first are, and you mentioned in a tweet earlier, one of them was off-ball linebacker, soon to be Denver Bronco Micah Parsons or Patrick Surtain. At the moment, or last we saw, Surtain was minus 230 and Parsons was 170 plus 176. Has that changed since Denver traded for Teddy Bridgewater, and do you still expect Surtain to go before Parsons?
I don't. So right now I'm looking at Surtain's plus 100, Horn's plus 200, and Parsons is plus 375 to be the first defender drafted. I have Horn at plus 1,000. I actually think he's going to end up being the first defender drafted, and I'm excited about that one. I think Parsons is going to fall. I think the Denver thing is just, they traded for Teddy Bridgewater. We're going to run and say, well, this makes the most sense that they could use a linebacker. Well, Micah Parsons is an off-ball linebacker that is a great athlete. He's great against the run. But he has basically no snaps in coverage. That's not good. He's got he plays a non-premium position that rarely goes in the top 10 with any holes in the game. That's not good. And his off-field stuff is very legitimate. These aren't 1 or 2 incidents, right? Like, there's multiple fights. There's multiple unreported things. And then, of course, the hazing stuff. I don't really want to say what he did on the show, but you can Google it, and it's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. And he can say I was young when that happened, but he's 20. Like, he was 18. Like, it's not like, I can say, well, when I was 18, I was an idiot, but I've grown so much. Like, when I was 20, I was also an idiot. There's a concerning track record there, and we've already seen his over-under go from open to 10.5. It's now all the way up at 13.5. I don't think he's going to be the Broncos pick. I think there's a good chance it's J.C. Horn. You look at that division, too, and why would I draft a running back that shuts down the run with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert? Right? I've got my 2 beasts on the outside in Von Miller, and I got Bradley Chubb. I know they signed Fuller, and they have Roby, but this is a league where you need, and they got Callahan in the slot. 2 of those guys are on 1-year contracts. None of those guys are particularly special players. You need a lot of corners and a lot of cover guys, and you need pass rushers to beat Herbert and Mahomes. So if you're going to rock with Teddy and Drew Lock, and you've invested in the offense, I think that makes the most sense. Or potentially Slater if he makes it past 8. So I really don't think Parsons is going to end up being the Broncos pick. I think he's going to end up falling to the 15 to 20 range. And I think Horn or Surtain will be the first player draft.
And you're praying for Horn, right? Given it,
I got
plus 1,000. That's a winning
1,000,
number.
But I also got plus 800 to be the first corner. So, I'll be sweating these picks from like 7 to 13.
I expect to see a video of you pulling out a cell phone from inside a goalpost if JC Horn goes. For those who are unaware, JC Horn is Joe Horn's son.
Yeah, we're debating whether or not I'm gonna buy a bottle of champagne and do the old school World Series celebration live on a show if Horn's the first defender drafted.
When we do talk though about an AFC West team, essentially gambling on a pick on Micah Parsons, can we all just agree that he's going to the Raiders? Because it just seems what the Raiders would do.
Before today, that was the most likely landing spot for him and the Raiders. And John Gruden has a history of looking past off-field issues. I've seen Parsons connected to the Lions as well, but again, I understand that Dan Campbell wants to eat kneecaps, but if you do a little bit of research, you see that the Fords are probably one of the most conservative teams in terms of any off-field issues from an ownership perspective. And they just spent all this money on analytics department, who would probably self-combust if you took an off-ball linebacker at the 7th overall pick. You can't cover anybody. So, yes, the Raiders make a ton of sense. I could see him falling down to Washington, at which point that could make a lot of sense too, them taking a chance on a guy like that. Though I think Washington's going to surprise people and take Jamin Davis out of Kentucky, 19th overall. Like his under, it's as high as 30 some places. I think he's a really good bet to go in the first round tomorrow.
The last one we've got that intrigued us when we were looking through these, Elliot, is the total number of Alabama players to be drafted in the first round. The over-under is at 5.5. Now, we were talking about this just before we came on. The sixth one that we could think of was Landon Dickerson, but I've seen or listened to and read an awful lot of podcasts or various publications. They've done their big mega mock draft, and I'm not seeing Dickerson in an awful lot of them. So, what do you like the 5.5, or would you be shying away from that?
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 locks, right? Patrick Surtain's going to go in round 1. Mac Jones will go in round 1. Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle will both go in round 1. Najee Harris currently has a prop of 25.5. Christian Barmore is the other one, the interior defensive lineman, who's got a draft prop about 23.5. That's why you're seeing minus 200 on the over, because right now Harris and Barmore are both favored to go in the first round. You have Landon Dickerson, and you've got Alex Leatherwood, whose prop has dropped from 48.5 to 39.5. Dickerson's about 36.5. So it's kind of like 2 guys on the outside looking in and 2 guys on the inside looking out, and you need 2 of those 4 to go. I think the odds are basically have the implied probability correctly, right? About 66% chance that 6 go. It's one of those stay-aways for me at this point.
Well, Elliot, that is fantastic stuff. Thank you very much. Highly educational, and I hope that everybody's been writing down those numbers, and also everyone get onto tweeting Elliot on tomorrow night to make sure he drinks all that champagne in one go when JC Horn goes ahead of Patrick Surtain. Yeah,
listen, I'm going to be fun on the timeline tomorrow night if JC Horn is the first defender drafted. I'll leave it at that.
Fantastic. Well, Elliot, thanks a lot for your time, and we shall let you go.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Neil, that was the brilliant Eliot Crist dropping a lot of knowledge, and I, for one now, will be praying for JC Horn to go top 10, beat Patrick Surtain, and get plus 1,000 for Elliot and bottles of champagne all round.
As much as I would like that to happen for Elliot, I actually kind of want Horn to go to the Eagles. So unless the Eagles jump up to take him above Surtain, me and Elliot we'll come to an agreement, but I'm not sure I'm with him on this one.
Before we go, Neil, we may as well do that then. We're, as I said, 24 hours before. Who do you expect the Philadelphia Eagles to draft, and who do you want the Philadelphia Eagles to draft?
I don't want them to draft anyone because I don't trust Harry Roseman. I expect them to take either a lineman, so either maybe if Slater falls, or maybe Elijah Vera Tucker, or JC Horn. Or if they take a lineman, I then expect that with one of their early second-round picks or their early second-round pick, maybe a cornerback there, and maybe, linking up the father-son lineage, maybe Asante Samuel, who obviously his dad played for the Eagles, of course. What the Eagles will do, I do not expect them to take a wide receiver in the first round. I know
everyone does, apart from you, right?
I know everyone does. I know Chal is dying for Devonta Smith, #Devonta no matter what. I just don't think it'll happen.
For Washington, we did the which we should talk about. We did the coffee with coach mock draft. Some of us got dressed up, some of us didn't. I'll let you guess which one was which. Neil's a miserable git. I picked Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in that, mainly because it's a cool name and I could say it. But I would expect them to try and go defense here. I'd prefer them to go Koramoah than Parsons, given, as Eliot said, there's one or two issues. If you're not aware of them, just Google them and they will pop up quite quickly. I think they will go that way, although if things fall their way, there's two situations, right? What situation one is they just take Vera Tucker and shore up the middle of that offensive line, or the real one, interesting one is when you get to 9 and on the board you still have one of the quarterbacks, and you think, can I get Justin Fields, and what do I need to give up for it? What I would say on that is I would be highly surprised if that happened for Washington, mainly given the Ohio State quarterback situation they had last time. Not that Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins are even remotely alike, because they are not. No. But teams don't like doing that multiple times.
No. Plus, as well, if you do take Owusu-Koramoah, you get a player with a cool sounding nickname, JOK.
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. Neil, that's it for tonight's show. Where can people catch you before we talk again?
Before we talk again, I'm on Twitter at Endutton13. I will be doing a few instant reaction pieces for RotoViz during the draft. I'll be jumping on the Roto Underworld live stream at some point on Friday. And then from next week onwards, I'll be dedicating most of my time to finishing off my work for the Player Profiler, #, world famous draft kit. So that'll be coming out, I think May or June. We're looking to release that. So yeah, I'll be a busy little boy, but I'll still be here to respond to anyone and everyone who abuses me on the Twitter.
Okay, I am at Main-G7 combined. We are at waxing_lyrical. Enjoy the next 3 days of draft coverage. Once this is done, we're on the slippery slope to the start of the season, and it'll be fancy time upon us very soon. Until then, these top guys are out.